My shirt is missing a button. Pretty much explains the garden as well. Just a fail. But also, it's bright out here. Hold on just a second. Oh, I made that a little too dark. Let's try it one more time. That's better. So welcome to my garden. That's my cool drone effect because I don't have a drone. So I'm bringing you on this garden tour not to show you a beautiful Instagram lush garden full of vegetables and flowers. Really the only thing Instagram worthy in this video is this shirt. I'm bringing you on this garden tour to show you where I messed up. But I'm going to also explain how I'm planning to fix my mess up and what I'm going to do in the future as to not mess up again. So first, let's talk about my cucumbers. So the cucumbers are looking pretty good, okay? I did have my friend Jill help me when it came to making them better, because when I first planted them, they weren't looking like this. The starting process, I feel, did very well for all of the plants that I started from seed. It wasn't until I put them in the ground where that's where I kind of slacked off and they didn't do so well. I trellised my cucumbers and they have done pretty good so far. This one actually started a little stunted, so it's not as good and healthy. It is healthy, but it's just not as lush as this one right here. This one actually has done the best. I've gotten a good bit of cucumbers from it so far. Some that I can pick now, and then I have some more inside that I can pickle, make some pickles. That's what we like the most of. Probably my most successful thing in the garden is my jalapenos. Now this has produced an abundance of jalapenos, and I believe the reasoning why is because I planted them in a new spot that I put here that wasn't here last time. So right there, that's one of my problems I feel I had this year, is I didn't necessarily rotationally plant any of my plants. All of my tomatoes are pretty much in the same row except for one row right here behind me, in which that's where we had our squash. The squash did well. I've already pulled them up, they're gone, and I planted some pumpkins here, which are starting to sprout and look all right. But this jalapeno is with a new spot, and I just believe it had a lot of good nutrients. Now, listen to what I'm saying, because that's going to foreshadow into what we got coming up. Now for our beans. So you see here, this trellis is leaning because the beans, of course, look great, huge. We had some volunteers against this chicken pen that grew up and look amazing as well. You can still see we have some beans on there that we need to pick. I've already picked a good handful already, a good bushel. Snapped them and have eaten them. But these did quite well. So speaking of beans, right here behind me, I have some bush beans that I planted. Some cow peas, which are called black eye peas, at least we call them black eye peas with the cow peas. And also try to plant some pinto beans. The pinto beans are not doing as well as these cow peas. You can see here we've got some good shoots on them. They're getting ready. Did kind of vine up, which was a little surprising to myself. But here, yeah, these are yellow, so I can actually see that's a cool black eye pea right there. So I'll pull these. Oh, last one. So we'll go ahead and pull these. I'll get them inside. But here's the pinto beans, and you see I've got some pods on here. It's just it didn't get big like the cow peas have. Now before we go any further into the garden, I'm going to show you my green stalk, because I feel like my green stalk did pretty well for the most part. We planted our lettuce in here. We've already harvested lettuce. So right here is the volunteer tomatoes. Look at that. I don't think you can have a garden tour without eating at least one of your ripened tomatoes, right? These are good. This one, that's 2. Now you can see, it's kind of falling over. I didn't like truss it up. I didn't really know what to expect with these little things. So I got them leaning against a stick and a post. So, oh well. That's some basil, and then there's that dill. This is like my little herb garden. Yeah, I know you see a lot of grass. Got a dill pop up here. This dill. We've got sage, some thyme, and some rosemary. Yeah, I've got some pruning to do up in here. So now for the hard part. I get to show you where I didn't do too well. I'm gonna start on the small stuff before we get to the finale of what we screwed up on. First thing that isn't doing the greatest. I got some cucumber plants from a friend of mine who lives right down the road. His look amazing. When I planted mine, they just have not done well. China jade cucumbers. They're like these long cucumbers, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you can see here, they are not too tall. I did this trellising system too for them, but they're kind of growing in a funky way. And then this one is actually long. It's just like curled around, which I do know they're supposed to be bigger. So that's one thing that kind of stunted, and it did not do as well as I hoped. I do have a lavender bush. Now, I know you can see all the grass. Yes, that is another thing that really kind of screwed me. The leaves worked. The oak leaves worked very well, actually. Then we had this really big storm. It has actually been like an oddly hot, rainy, windy summer so far. So a lot of it blew away. And then here comes the big one. I was lazy. So right here we have our okra. Yeah, there's a little, we're gonna call this dwarf okra. I've apparently planted some kind of odd variety of dwarf Clemson spiralens okra. But again, that's just one of those things that, like I said, it just has not done well. That's a bell pepper, and that's a bell pepper. And you can see it's got some blossoms on it, but it's very small. And they literally have not grown any taller, but they have just been healthy, but it's like they're just stunted. I did start these, and they just have not done really anything. I do have a small bell pepper, right there, but you see they're just super small. And yes, it is close to here. These actually did pretty good. I just have let them go because I don't have any other use for the tomatillos. I could pull them up, I just haven't yet, but the tomatillos actually did really well. Last season I planted loofah, and I planted it again. I started like 4 plants. I gave one start to my parents, and then I had this start. This one, you can see, it's grown. It's grown all right. This is my parents' loofah plant. It took over a whole tree. Like, the whole thing. Lavish. Tried planting it the early season when I was supposed to, so that I have good loofahs and stuff, and that didn't work. And I'm still not sure it's going to with this plant. And that brings us to the full disappointment in the garden. And no, I'm not just talking about myself. As you can see, it just looks bad. Just looks bad. I literally have been spraying fish emulsion on them to try to make sure they have good nutrients. They still yelled up a little bit. I pruned, but then it got extremely hot, and I got lazy in the garden itself. You can see, I mean, we've got some fruits, especially the San Marzanos have done the best out of all the tomatoes. And these what are these, like cream? These are like a cherry tomatoes, something cream. I suck at the names, but yeah, I know it's blue. I think it's blue cream, honestly. And so those have done pretty good. I've just been eating them off of the vine. When I first planted the garden, I planted it and I wanted it, and I turned the sprinkler on and just top watered. for a long time. Basically, I didn't spend the time in the garden like I used to or like I did last season. And so I didn't pick off like the hornworms like I should. But I also haven't had the amount of hornworms that I did the first season. And I do kind of attribute that to the fact that I do have this awesome pollinator plant right next to them. Right here, super huge. The fragrance is amazing. So it has attracted a lot of beneficials that have kind of helped us out. I did pick off a few, but it's just, it's my fault. One of the reasons is because, like I said, I got lazy. I just didn't spend the time in the garden. I did not mulch. The grass just kind of took over. So a couple of the things that I know I'm going to do, along with the mulch and the fertilizing and stuff, is I like how my garden's set up. I like my rows. So what I think I'm going to do is actually put like row edges and then mulch and cover them and let them rest. Let that turn into soil, let it kill the weeds down and stuff, and then add new dirt on it for the next spring season. Before I even do that, I'm getting ahead of myself on that project. So I do still have some stuff in the garden I'm gonna leave in. So like my beans. So I'm not gonna rip everything up. Not yet. But there are things I'm gonna rip up. And I'm going to let my wonderful fertilizers do the thing. I made this rabbit tractor. Now there is wire on the bottom so they can't dig out. But it's got an ample amount of room. It's not too heavy. And so what I'm gonna do is move them onto my rows, slowly but surely, letting them eat up the grass and poop on it, you know, throughout the rest of the summer into the fall. And then as they do that, as we move them, and I'm just using this row as an example, as I move them, I'm then going to mulch and cover where they've been so that their good poop fertilizes and nourishes the ground. And that is my biggest mistake. I just didn't take the time to learn composting. I have a friend, Farah, you know, she does an 18-day compost and she shows how to do it, and I just, again, lazy. It's like this time I got garden lazy. When it came to the animals, I was great. I did great with the animals. Animals are easy. Gardening is hard. Animals, you feed them, you water them, you give them shelter, and you just make sure they don't die. The garden it goes a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in that ground that you need to take care of, along with just your plants. So, my plan, what I'm going to do, is learn how to take care of my ground. And by doing that, I'm going to not plant in the fall and the winter. I'm going to let it rest. So, our plan is to make a plan. Our plan is to do better. We're going to change our mindset. We're going to quit being lazy. And we're going to do the thing. Because I want to do the thing. This isn't something... I'm not doing this for any other reason but to grow food for my family and enjoy that fresh, delicious food that we made, that we put in the ground and harvested, because there's nothing like it. Everything, eating one of those tomatoes, delicious. Like, you just feel the love and the power of the earth in it, and it's way better. And that's why I'm doing this. And if I want to keep doing this and not get burnt out, not feel like a failure, I'm gonna have to put in the hard work, and we're gonna do it. And sometimes putting in the hard work means you got to tear down, take a break, learn something, and then implement that process. It's time to just hit it and do it. So, thank you for coming on this garden tour, man. I know it's a little different. I hope this helps you out with knowing that, like, it's okay to fail. We like to fail forward is what we'd say. We would say. So, still a beautiful garden, still love being in it. But you learn, you live and you learn. You can't make a mistake, you're not gonna learn to, it's a hummingbird. Not even gonna try, okay. They landed. We're gonna make mistakes, we're gonna fix those mistakes. And we're gonna keep learning. And we're gonna keep making mistakes too. What are some of the mistakes that you've made in your garden this season so far? And why? Like, has it been extremely hot? I think that really stunted our tomatoes too, is the heat. But has it been really hot? Has it been really rainy? Like, tell me like what you got going on. Because I wanna know. I wanna know, am I the only one? I know I'm not. Don't be shy. I know it's a long rain right here at the end. I appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with us.